Let's get started. Our topic today is accelerating your hiring funnel using AI-powered chatbots. This is certainly an area of passion for Sense, and we're going to be spending the next 45 to 50 minutes here getting into a good level of detail on what chatbots can do today, specifically for the staffing industry, and actually give you a demonstration of the Sense chatbot as well. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Pankaj. I am one of the founders of Sense, started the company about 5.5 years ago. And before that, I ran staffing companies for about 15 years. So I've spent most of my life in this industry and very passionate about improving candidate experience and at the same time, increasing the bottom line dollars for staffing firms who are our customers. With me today, we have another industry veteran, Stephen Miller, who is a senior solutions consultant with Sense. He's the one who's going to be taking us through the product and giving us an under the hood look at everything that you can do with the Sense chatbot. Thank you, Stephen. All right, so before we get started, for any of you who are not familiar with Sense, just a real quick recap on the company. We've been around for 5.5, going on 6 years now. We have over 500 customers, every single one of which is a staffing company. So we've stayed very true to our mission, which was to build the first complete system of engagement specifically designed for the staffing industry. We've also taken great pains to make sure that we are enterprise ready. So we've built a various number of integrations with ATSs. We integrate with several other ecosystem and software providers to essentially give you the complete system of engagement experience, which probably also explains why we work with 6 of the top 10 staffing firms in the US today, and a third of the largest staffing companies in the US, the largest as defined by SIA, companies with over $100 million in revenue. We recently also completed our SOC 2 Type 2 certification, pretty hard to get, but this tells you how serious we are about our customers' data and privacy. Along this journey, we've raised about $40 million in funding from several blue chip investors like Axel Partners and Google Ventures. So that's a little summary about Sense. But as we talk about chatbots specifically, let's first get a little bit into what the candidate experience today looks like. What do candidates think of staffing companies as they apply to you? First of all, I think a lot of candidates will tell you that staffing companies can be a black hole. 70% of the candidates will never even fill a form or never even apply to your company because they never hear back from you. Their interest just gets lost somewhere within the ATS. And about 49% or half the people who will fill a form, who will actually apply to you, they never hear back from your company. Candidates feel like they can get ghosted by the firms, which basically has an overall impact on your perception. But at the same time, you're just losing out on your biggest asset, which is talent. And we're all living in a world of acute talent shortage. So a lot of customers we work with, who certainly are on the cutting edge of candidate experience, very much realize that one, giving the candidates a consumer-like experience is super relevant now. They want you to remember their personalized choices. They want you to meet where they live, whether it's via an email or a text message or a chat bot. So it's very, very important for you to leverage a technology that will enable them to have that experience at scale. Now, you'll probably all agree with me if you looked at this slide and thought about recruiting processes, they are very expensive today. In general, for example, in the US, the cost of hiring is over $2,000. This cost varies with the kind of person that you're hiring. In the light industrial segment, it's $1,500 to $2,000. On the IT and professional side, it can be $3,000 to $4,000. Now, you're spending that much money to hire a candidate, yet at the same time, a ton of your placements are coming from people who are already sitting in your database. So if you had enriched your database and found out people who are still available, found out people who are wanting to work, how much money do they want to work for, you could potentially reach out to them before you're paying job boards or before you're spending this kind of cost per hire money. There's also a lack of resources. There are only 20% of applications that even get reviewed. So think about it. Like I said, 70 to 80% of the candidates won't even get a call back from a recruiter, even though they applied to your company. And then, of course, when recruiters do have the time to call somebody back, they're also bogged down by a ton of processes that they have to do internally. For example, keeping the ATS up to date, just making sure they're prospecting and pipelining, all of which can very much be automated and can certainly be automated using a chatbot. So this is the problem statement to keep in mind as you think about, why you might potentially use a chatbot. If you have, talent shortage, if you have if you have a large talent database that is not currently being fully utilized, or if you're not able to reach out to everybody who applies to you. So then let's talk about how an AI powered chatbot might be able to help. So first of all, let's just make sure everybody understands what a chatbot is, because, different people have a different perception of a chatbot. Chatbots are obviously AI powered conversational assistants. You may remember a chatbot as going to a shopping site and simply asking, where do I find this? Or just, doing an FAQ type thing and saying, where is this product located, so on and so forth. But the chatbots that exist today, they're much smarter. They can actually have a natural language human conversation. This conversation can happen through voice, can happen through text, can happen via email. So in many different ways you can have, or over the web, where you're actually having a conversation, you're responding to somebody's natural language, and you're essentially getting them to a point where you can make a decision. A decision being, yes, this is somebody I want to pursue further, or this is somebody I want to redirect elsewhere. So that's what you should think of when you think about a chatbot. And why would you need a chatbot? What's the advantage of a chatbot? So here are three big points that I make. The first one is speed. I think everybody probably agrees with this. Speed is key in the staffing industry, especially if you ever work through an MSP or a VMS. As soon as the position opens, if you're not amongst the first 5 or 10 people to submit a resume, that position is probably going to go on hold. So you want to engage with people quickly, you want to be able to screen them quickly, and you can do that using a chatbot. So speed is number one. Second is just talent expectations, right? I mean, what exactly does the candidate want? I've used this example a couple of times before, but in the healthcare space, for example, oftentimes nurses or healthcare workers are only able to get a break at midnight or after hours. Your recruiters are not working at that time, but they still have the expectation that they can get a consumer-like experience and have a real conversation. So they can talk to a chatbot. They can have a conversation with a chatbot, answer some questions, and if they pass your screening criteria, the chatbot can immediately come in and say, let me schedule you with a recruiter. The scheduler is just automatically built in as part of the chatbot. You can then pick a time that works for you. It's the time that you're choosing, nothing that a recruiter is imposing on you. Could be tomorrow, could be 7 days from now, but whenever you know that you can be available. And then lastly, scale. I think pretty much every company I'm talking to right now is telling me that there is acute talent shortage. They have hundreds of open positions, but they can't find candidates. Sometimes in the light industrial sector, people are just not even wanting to work. They can sit at home, collect stimulus checks and unemployment, and just stay away from work for the time being. So where you had to reach out to 10 or 15 people before to fill a position, now you might have to reach out to 50 or 100 people. In other words, you have to cast a wider net. How are you going to do that? You can't cast a wider net by using the same recruiter or the same number of recruiters. You're certainly not going to have 4 times the number of recruiters. But a chatbot can do that for you automatically. You simply point the chatbot in a pointed direction and say, these are the 100 people who are based in Minnesota, who want to work for this amount of money, who have this particular skill set that I want you to go talk to. You can reach out to 100 people. The people who are interested can go through a quick pre-screening. And as soon as they do that, you just have the people that you need, and you can then advance them in the process. So that's why a conversational assistant matters. All the forward-thinking companies in the US today are using some sort of a chatbot. We will, as we go forward in this conversation, we'll actually talk about some of the results that they're seeing already. And some of these results are just absolutely mind-blowing. So if you're one of those people who's on the fence about using a chatbot, we should certainly chat. We can share more data with you and actually show you A/B tests that people have done on what the performance looks like of your hiring team without a chatbot versus with a chatbot. All right. So, I've talked about what is a chatbot, why do you need a chatbot, but let's talk about, what does it solve for you? So first of all, it just unlocks recruiter productivity. Several of our customers have done what are called time studies, where they literally study what a recruiter does the entire 8 hours of their day for a number of months. And then they aggregate that data and come up with big, large buckets. And most of these companies will report that 50% of their time is spent on screening and scheduling candidates. That's 50% of your recruiter's life. Screening a candidate, scheduling them, sending them a reminder. Some people need to rescheduling them. Some people, can't be available when you are, so on and so forth. So just calendaring these people and screening these people is 50+% of their time. So if you think you have automation in place today where some of the things are happening with your ATS automatically, that might be helping 10% of your recruiter's productivity. But here is something that can help 50% of your recruiter's time. You would probably also agree with the fact, at least this is the funnel that I saw when I was running staffing companies, that for every 10 to 15 people that you're talking to, there are only 1 or 2 people who will get hired or who are qualified enough to be submitted. So your recruiters are actually wasting 85% of their time when they're talking to everybody who's not even qualified. If you had a chatbot talk to them, literally within 3 or 4 questions, the chatbot can determine that they're not a fit for that particular position and save your recruiter a 30-minute meeting. So, another another example I would give you, in the light industrial world, people are always asking the same question. Do you have a driver's license? Are you authorized to work in the US? Have you ever gotten a DUI? Are you able to stand on your feet? Can you lift 50 pounds a day? All of those and these are all qualifying questions. If you said no to any of this, you probably can't do this job. Same exact thing on the IT and professional side. How many years of experience do you have with this particular technology? Have you done this kind of a project before? Some of those things that are just 100% of a qualifying question, you can certainly use that to make sure that your recruiters are talking to people who are likely to go down the funnel in the hiring process. So one big thing, recruiter productivity. Secondly, just engaging 100% of your applicants. If 1,000 people applied to you and you're only reaching back to 100 of them, or you're reaching back to the rest of them 1 or 2 weeks later, they've moved on by then, or they've formed an impression about your company that says, this isn't a prompt company to work for. This isn't somebody who takes care of their people, takes care of their applicants, and that's certainly not what you want. So this is also statistics that we've collected where applicants don't have their first phone interview up to 2 to 3 weeks after they've applied. And by then, somebody else has already gotten the jump on you. So the idea that the moment somebody comes to your website, expresses an interest, the moment somebody applies to you on a job board, the moment you decide to reach out to somebody from your database, whatever the case might be, you can immediately screen them, immediately schedule them within minutes, so they know this is when I'm talking to the recruiter, and pending that conversation, I will be submitted to a job. So that's one of those things that you can certainly go from taking 2 to 3 weeks to doing almost instantly. So, also keep in mind, and we will show you that during the demonstration, that this can be done in a mobile first fashion. So what does that mean? Every part of this communication that you're having using a chatbot can be done over text messaging. So nobody needs to be sitting next to a computer. Nobody needs to be checking their email. And these text messages can be asynchronous. What I mean by that is, maybe you ask somebody a question and maybe they took 50 minutes to reply. The moment they reply, the second question goes back immediately, and maybe they took another 30 minutes to reply. They can reply whenever, and maybe this whole back and forth process took 3 hours, but you would have all of that finished in one single conversation that lasted over 3 hours. And if they engaged with you and if they replied back and forth, they can just immediately answer that within minutes, within seconds. One of the questions I just got is that that this data may be applicable to large companies. How about small and medium companies? I have to say that the small and medium companies are actually just delighted to get a chatbot. Small and medium companies who are customers of ours, They're the ones who do not have extra bandwidth or extra cash. They can't just stand up three extra recruiters. They can't just stand up three extra sourcers. If you got four new jobs, you can absolutely use a chatbot for those. We sell the chatbot at every price point. So the pricing is something that's going to be palatable to you no matter what. But can it help you as an SMB business? Heck yes, because if you're a small company, and if you got five new orders today, and by the way, you're probably getting more orders today because companies are not able to fill positions, so they're opening up to, I'm not just going to work with these four suppliers who I've worked with forever, I'm going to open it to 10 more. If you're getting new job orders, you're not just going to hire recruiters because you have more job orders. You want to see more head count before you have the money to apply for it. So anyway, I mean, more than happy to get into that conversation in depth, but it's actually a bigger use cases that we see with SMB businesses, because they stand up the chatbot almost instantly, and within a week they're just up and running. And then lastly, just maximizing the return on your own investments. I can tell you customers I know who spend $100,000 a year on job boards, and they've been doing that for the last 10, 15, 20 years, which means they spend millions of dollars building a candidate pool. So that's one statistic. The second statistic is actual piece of data. We've gone to some of our customers and analyzed the placements that they made within a single year. And turns out more than 50% of those placements came from people who were already in their database. So you would think that you could spend less than half the money on a job board, isn't it? But they're not. They're spending the exact same amount of money. These people are already sitting in your database. If you could just automatically go and clean up this data. Hey, are you still at this zip code? Are you still able to work for 50 bucks an hour or whatever it was? Are you still authorized to work in the US? When will you be available next? What kind of job would you want to do next? If you can ask people these questions and keep your database up to shape, you don't have to go to job boards to find those same people. In fact, right as they say yes to a particular question, you can say, oh, you actually fit a job I have open right now. Mind answering three more questions so we can screen you. And if that happens, you can do a pre-screening right there and then. So just make sure that the dollars that you have already spent on creating a rich database, that you're auto enriching it, you're keeping it fresh, you're keeping it sanitized. So your recruiters make it a habit that they search in your ATS first before they go to any other source that costs you money. All right. I hope this makes sense. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Sense chatbot. Let's get into why we built the chatbot. What does it do today? Why we're excited about it. So first things first, I mean, the Sense chatbot is just revolutionizing our customers. I'll let you guys read through this slide. This is a summary of a lot of what I've just talked about so far, but you would see this is a dramatic difference. In the manual approach, 60% of a recruiter's time is being spent on data entry, screening, scheduling, so on and so forth. 90% of that is now being done by the chatbot. If you're going to ask the same exact questions, you can just ask them via technology. And once somebody gives all the right answers, that's the only time you give them 15 minutes or 30 minutes. And oh, by the way, if you were spending 30 minutes with them before, you can probably spend 15 minutes with now, and you can only allow them 15-minute windows to schedule with you using the chatbot, because half the questions you are going to ask them are already pre-answered for you. Second is just the application complete rate. That is just dramatically changed. When staffing companies were reaching out before, they were getting 3 to 5% completion rate. So you reach out to 100 people and say, would you like to apply for this job? And only 3 to 5% of those people are saying yes. That number has grown up to 25% with most of our customers. You are going to see in some data that I'll present here in a second that anybody who talks to a chatbot, so just as a feature of the product, any kind of chatbot that you build, once somebody's done talking to it, the last question we ask them is, how satisfied were you with your experience talking to the chatbot? And across hundreds of thousands of conversations, that number is always above 4.5 or above 90% satisfaction. So it's a huge amount of satisfaction, even from your actual consumer, your actual end user, which is the candidate who's saying, I actually like this. And I'll also present data where customers have done A/B tests. They've had 1,000 people come, inbound, and they've taken those people and just sort of moved ahead with them using their normal manual process. And then they've had another 1,000 people use a chatbot, and the number of placements that they made from these people were 3 times higher, 0.7% compared to 2%. 2% of everybody who talked to a chatbot actually got converted into a placement, whereas people who didn't were 1/3 of that. So Stephen is going to walk you through all of this, but just to give you a snapshot of everything that the product includes, first of all, there is a super powerful no-code conversation builder. We will take you through that. What that basically means is you can literally just drag and drop and build your own conversations. Ask this question, then this, then this, then this, then this. If somebody says yes, do this. If somebody says no, do that. You can just build those conversations just as you would have them in your head. Doesn't require you writing any code. And as soon as you build a conversation, you press a button and we automatically generate the machine learning for it. We're literally the only product in the market that does that. Secondly, you can screen these people over an SMS or web. You'll see both of those examples today. You can send this chatbot out over web, or you can send this chatbot using a text message. Thirdly, I talked about this before. This works for you 24/7. If your recruiters have gone home at 5 p.m. and somebody comes to your website at 5:30, they will still be able to talk to a chatbot. They'll still be able to answer most of the questions, and they'll still be able to schedule when they're talking to a recruiter. The biggest thing here is this bidirectionally syncs with your ATS. We've spent a lot of time in making sure that that happens. So we will absolutely synchronize all the conversations and write them back into candidate records. So if your recruiter shows up tomorrow morning, they can automatically see 50 people that were screened by the chatbot and the notes. So when they have their actual meeting, they can literally go through it and say, well, these 7 questions are already answered. I just have a couple more questions, and then I can make a determination. As you would expect, the product is fully integrated into the Sense suite. So for those of you who are on this call today and who already use Sense, who are customers of Sense, please know that we will seamlessly be integrated with Engage. What that means is you can literally press a button, send out a journey via Engage to 1,000 people. As they get that message, whether it is an email or a text, it'll have a link. You click on the link and the chatbot launches automatically. We have inbuilt scheduling. I can't tell you how many staffing companies I talked to today where they're spending money using Calendly or some other calendaring solution that they're using a link for in their signature or email signature just to set up time with people. That's a thing of the past. You can do all of that with the Sense chatbot. You will get your own personal scheduling link. You can add that to your emails. You can add that to your text messages, and it's fully integrated with your calendar, whether it's the Google Calendar or the Outlook calendar, and it's fully integrated with your applicant tracking system. And then lastly, all the training data that our chatbots have is essentially related to staffing, right? We have 500 customers. Every one of them who's using a chatbot is essentially having staffing conversations. So all of the terminology that you're used to today, margins, spread, redeployment, start date, so on and so forth, is exactly the thing that it's learning. So when it comes to the staffing industry, we really are the only chatbot that is focused solely on it. Here is an example that I wanted to share with you. These are some results that one of our customers has seen, Volt. They're over $1 billion in revenue, but these are public results now because they were shared in one of their earnings call by their CEO, Linda Perneau. I'm going to play for you a quick 50-second clip that will give you a sense of what the chatbot can do for your business. And again, I know since this question was asked before, these are exactly the kind of results you're going to see regardless of whether you're a small company or a really large company.
Technology in ways we had not done previously, including the introduction of a chatbot for a group of specific clients. Over an 18-week period, the use of this chatbot produced a 263% increase in the number of candidates screened for open job opportunities when compared to a manual approach. And it also reduced time to fill by 30%. to 81%, depending on the client. This technology gives us the ability to chat with a candidate, ask customized questions, and determine whether they will advance in the process, all before a recruiter engages. This freed up over 800 hours of recruiter time, significantly reducing time spent on unqualified candidates, and ultimately providing bandwidth for them to place these screened candidates and generate margin dollars 13 times the actual investment.
Yeah, so this is the part that gets me really excited. As you can see, we are very, very driven by ROI. And what Linda was just talking about is pure ROI. Here are the number of recruiter hours we've saved. Here is how much we've saved on time to fill. Here are how many more candidates we are screening. But most importantly, we've saved or we've generated 14 times the money in gross margin that they spent on our product. And that's just in an 18-week period. Imagine the ROI that they will have over a year, over a 52-week period. These are some other results from some other companies. We're not using their names, but we have a light industrial customer. Same sort of statistics. They've saved 695 hours through pre-screen bots. They have a 97.6% candidate satisfaction rating. This is what I was talking about before, and you will see this live. Once somebody finishes talking to a bot, you actually ask them, hey, how satisfied were you with this experience? How many placements were influenced? And on the other side, you're seeing an IT/professional customer. They've saved over 3,000 hours just through reactivation. Very high candidate satisfaction rating. And this is the customer I was referring to, where they've done 3 times the number of placements with candidates that interacted with a chatbot versus ones that did not. And of course, across both of these customers, they've significantly reduced their time to fill, and they've generated margin dollars that are several times more than the amount of money that they're spending with Sense. So I hope all of this makes sense. What we've done so far is just given you an idea about why we wanted to build the chatbot. What are the benefits of the chatbot? For those of you who are on the fence or who've never considered one, we'd be more than happy to have a detailed conversation. We now have dozens and dozens of customers who are live on the chatbot. We'll be happy to have you talk to any one of them, happy to sort of give you a peek at what the results look like. But first, let's turn over to Stephen, and we're going to get sort of under the hood here. And everything that I talked about, we'll just show you that in real life. Our aim here is to do a couple of things. 1, to show you how simple and slick these products are. 2, how easy of a lift it is to stand these up. And 3, how efficient these can be when it comes to both data enrichment and pre-screening. So with that, Stephen, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, gang. We are going to jump right in, and we are going to start off today with a conversational bot that I actually deployed no code this morning. As a candidate enters the career site, you're going to see the no code chatbot that I deployed. I can assure you I'm not a developer. I am not a programmer, but I was able to quickly stand up a chatbot that I've embedded into the career site. This chatbot's going to ask a few simple questions as we have a new job seeker on the site. We know that over 80% of job seekers or individuals researching the career site don't apply the first time. So this is going to give them an option where they're going to be able to stay in touch. So a quick lead capture of information. As the individual hits the site, we're going to quickly ask, hey, would you like to get connected with somebody from the recruitment team? In this example, I built in, sounds great, or not now. This is going to be a great way that, depending on the way the candidate's feeling today, if they say, hey, yeah, I'd love to get connected with someone on the recruitment team, we're going to immediately start engaging. Now, if they say, hey, I'm not quite ready, you can say, hey, no problem. I'm here 24/7, always ready to help you with your next placement or getting connected with our team. I want to make sure that I gather basic contact information for this individual. So things like their name. So this individual, John Smith. Great. Now, of course, we want to make sure that if this individual maybe drops off during the process, that we're starting off by collecting things that are really valuable and important. So you're going to see here, I'm going to start by collecting phone number and other contact information. The great thing is we obviously might be moving really fast. Maybe I thought you asked about area code, zip code, and I just threw in a zip code instead of my phone number. We're going to validate all of the data coming in from the candidate. So things like zip codes, phone numbers, currencies, dates, we're going to make sure that we validate to get the correct information. So, oh, I'm sorry, not sure yet here. That wasn't a phone number. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put in my valid phone number. Great, we got the phone number. Now you're going to see another custom question, keeping in mind that all the questions that you're seeing in these, the flow here and all of the conversations we're going to go through were deployed, no code, and can be completely customized. So as the questions are being asked, again, completely configurable by you. So I'm asking my questions away. And of course, I want things like an email address. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure we get that email address. And you're going to see here, maybe I just accidentally typed really too fast again. Just another good example here of that data validation. Great. We want to make sure that as we start to converse with you, as we start to think about you for new opportunities, maybe I want to make sure I know where you actually live. Now, I don't need your full address at this point. I'm just asking for your zip code. As I plug away my zip code here, again, another good example of the validation so that we're always making sure that we're getting the relevant information because we are going to be updating or pushing that data into our applicant tracking or CRM system. I want to make sure that as I go into this conversation or as my recruitment team goes into these conversations, they understand what areas of interest. So in this example, this individual is going to be interested in light industrial as well as customer service. Keeping in mind, these are completely configurable or customizable by you. These are just some examples that I built in for today's conversation. You're going to see here, I wanted to keep this really, really quick, really conversational based. So, hey, when might you be available to get started? So the beginning of next month. And then based on the responses of the candidate, based on that conversation that we just had, again, completely configurable or customizable with the data validation within that conversation. As my candidate interacted with the chatbot, we're also going to allow them to set up some time with the recruitment team. Now you're going to see right here within the chatbot, we have the ability to allow the candidate to go ahead and self-schedule out some time to chat with the recruitment team. Now, in this example, I have a group of recruiters that I'd like the candidate to potentially be able to schedule with. So I've got multiple recruiters' calendars set up. What that allows us to do is quickly round robin interviews or send out based on the best availability. We're going to present time to the candidate. The candidate's going to quickly be able to select a time that works for them, and they're able to schedule the interview right in that conversational flow. As the interview gets scheduled, that's going to send out all those typical notifications and calendar invites that we're used to going through our email. We can also send out text reminders and custom reminders. So as we come up for that interview, maybe we want to send email and text reminders to our candidate. And of course, we fully support rescheduling. So if something comes up and the candidate's no longer going to be available, they're going to be able to quickly and easily reschedule the interview on their own.
Yeah, that's awesome, Stephen. We got a couple of questions while you were presenting, so I'll quickly answer those.
Yes.
The first question we got was, is this information collected and sent to and possibly stored in our database? It very much is. That's exactly the point I was making and what Stephen is saying now. We are integrated with your ATS. So this isn't just a bot that is, that's standalone. Every single piece of this information is being sent back to your ATS and is being written in the candidate record. Somebody else asked for clarification, the inbound chatbot will not be available until around Q4. That's not correct. It's available now. We're obviously rolling it out slowly, but some of our customers wanted the inbound chatbot. They basically prioritize this as something that they really wanted. 90% of our customers still see a lot of value in the outbound chatbot because it is a lot more targeted. You can figure out the people you want to reach out to. But yeah, we are starting to deploy this. So if this is something that you're interested in, please send us an email on the side and you will get both mine and Stephen's emails at the end of this conversation, and we will happily look into deploying this for you right away. And then the other question I got was, what is the timeline for this to go live? So, the timeline is pretty much now. We're rolling this out as people request it, and the Outbound chatbot has been live for nearly a year at this point. Back to you.
Awesome. All right, gang, we're going to keep moving right along, and we are actually going to switch experiences here. And I'm actually going to show you what that experience might look like from a mobile device. So it's likely, obviously, that our candidate maybe is on their mobile device, or maybe happens to actually find our information on that mobile device. So what I want to show you is actually the ability to quickly and easily scan a QR code. And so the exact same experience that we just saw on the desktop, you can also link up to things like QR codes so that you can place those in your job ads, within emails and text messages that you're distributing out through Sense Engage. But what just happened was a candidate ran across a QR code. They were able to scan that QR code, and it instantly popped open the exact same experience that we just saw on the desktop browser. So as we begin conversing with the chatbot, hopefully this is going to feel very familiar, because this is the exact same flow that we just went through on the desktop version. Keeping in mind that that desktop version that we went through was a candidate visiting the career site, and they interacted with that customized, will allow you to place that QR code. Candidates then interact with that QR code. They're going to be able to go in and interact with the chatbot. So here we've got our candidate, John Keller, that has interacted with the QR code. So same experience that we just saw here. Right, what's a good phone number? So again, maybe I'm just typing super fast and I'm miskeying some information here. We're going to make sure that we validate all of the data. So we'll just go ahead and we'll plug in our email address. Again, here, just to show you a quick example of that validation for you. Again, doesn't matter, desktop or mobile, we're going to make sure that we validate the data correctly, because again, we may sync that data up with your system of record. Customized flow here again. So in this example, maybe we're interested in learning about accounting and customer service. Same last question here. So we're going to say we're available this time. Maybe we're available a little bit later in the month, and we'll submit that information. So again, same experience we just saw on the desktop here, but in this example, the candidate, lead, or prospect was able to scan that QR code. So that whole conversation all in one easy thread. We're then going to go ahead and we're going to give the individual the ability to go ahead and set up time with the recruiter, just like we saw on the desktop version. We're not going to pop them out to a different browser. They can go ahead, maybe they want to go out to next week. In this example, I've actually restricted this touch point to be 15 minutes. Again, this can be configured to one recruiter's calendar or a group of recruiters' calendars so that the interviews can be round robin or scheduled based on availability. So we're going to switch gears just a little bit. So now we've seen two inbound experiences. Now we're going to transition to a purely outbound experience, 100% over text message. So one of the huge value propositions to the Sense chatbot is the ability for us to help with candidate pre-screening, as well as the ability to enrich candidate data. So in this example, I have built out a custom chatbot workflow that automatically triggers as candidates are applying to jobs. This chatbot flow is going to run 100%, include things like that natural language. So you'll see I'm going to respond different ways as I interact with the chatbot. Now, of course, this chatbot could also be deployed over web. So if I prefer to launch this via web and allow my candidate to access or interact with this on a mobile device, absolutely something they can do. So we're going to jump right in here. You're going to see as I start to interact with the text chatbot, right? Natural language. So maybe I don't fully type yes or no. I just said yeah or yes. Next thing we're going to see is a completely customized chatbot flow with branching logic. So a good example is if I say, no, I'm not willing to wear a mask, and that's a requirement in this facility or location, the chatbot can automatically reject and let the candidate down with that information feeding back into the applicant tracking system or candidate record. So we're just going to keep the conversation over text message. As Pankaj mentioned, they may, walk away from this conversation for 30, 40 minutes, not a problem. They can always come back to the text and continue the conversation. Again, keeping in mind, these are customizable questions. So the information that we're presenting or the questions we're asking can be completely configured and customized with that no code chatbot. I'm just going to keep rocking and rolling here. Yep, got reliable transportation. So literally same conversation over text message, keeping the conversation going. Going to accept any policies, procedures that we may want to have our individual acknowledge. And again, keeping in mind, gang, there's about 8 questions in this flow. You might say, I just want to have 3, 4 questions. I'm going to deploy this for legal, IT, accounting, different types of questions that you might obviously want to ask. Last question here. Are you willing to participate in drug and background check? Sure. And then our final question here. That available date, again, completely configurable or customizable. Now, this conversation is run purely on text message with my candidate. So you're going to see here, they're going to get a message. Hey, it looks like you're a great fit for this position. Now, it's awesome that we're going to acknowledge that they just passed pre-screening favorably, but they're also going to have the ability to click a link right within that text message. And that's going to open up a candidate scheduling portal. So even if they choose to interact with the chatbot 100% on text message, if you want to utilize things like the interview scheduling, you can quickly and easily give them access to those calendars right through the link. They're able to then go in, select the time for their preferred interview, confirm, and schedule their interview. So that was an example 100% on text message. Now, you might be wondering, well, what happens if we choose to maybe send this over email, or maybe we want to ask a lot of questions in our chatbot workflow. We have a lot of pre-screening questions that are applicable. So maybe we just simply need to ask more questions, or we want to build out a more verbose chatbot workflow. We're going to take a look here on desktop. This is just another example here of a way that I've triggered my chatbot. Now, I've gone into my applicant tracking system. I've identified candidates that I've had access to that their profiles have not been updated in about 1.5 years. I've deployed this chatbot en masse. I could do this via text or email. I've chosen to do this via email. This is going to link off and invite the individual to interact with the chatbot. Now, of course, they could do this completely on their mobile device as well. So if I click that link on my mobile, on the desktop version, but essentially what's happening here is I've got a candidate record that's gotten a little stale within my applicant tracking system. I'm really looking to update as much information as possible because we're struggling right now with, the performance of our job boards, with, as Pankaj mentioned, market conditions, unemployment. So essentially, I just want to make sure that I've got really relevant information. And if you've moved, updated your contact information, maybe your job preferences have changed, I want to gather that information, update that within my applicant tracking system. I might even want to take that to the point of setting up time with that candidate, as you've seen in a few of our examples today. So the candidate is going to be welcomed into the conversation. As they're welcomed into the conversation, based on the number of questions that I built in my chatbot flow, It's going to estimate the time to complete the conversation. So less than 3 minutes here. I bet if I wasn't talking, I could move through this conversation a whole lot faster than 3 minutes, because this is just super, super simple for the candidate. Data validation, as we've seen in all of our other chatbot workflows. So we're going to make sure that we're grabbing the correct information. If maybe they were just typing super fast on their phone or on their desktop, we're going to make sure we grab the relevant information and validate. Cell phone numbers here, same thing. If I throw in some crazy kind of a phone number or email, the system's going to pick that for me. Make sure that we're validating and updating information. Contact information, just as we've seen in our other conversations. You'll see here, web-based or on a phone. Really nice interactive experience here. And again, all completely customized. So I might say, no, not currently employed. I'm currently looking for hourly salaried. Maybe this is going to be permanent or temporary, but I'm going to say I'm looking for hourly. What's your desired hourly rate? Now, if they said, hey, I'm more interested in a salaried role, we don't want to say, hey, what's your hourly preferred rate? We can then say, hey, what salary, annual salary range are you looking for? Or what compensation expectations? So the different branching logic is going to allow us to ask different questions based on the candidate input or the candidate response. So they're interested in 15 an hour, desired job title. So I'm going to say operator. Any, again, custom questions here. In this example, I want to just make sure that I've got their latest and greatest work authorization status. So we're going to say US citizenship. And then again, you can take this all the way to the point of scheduling interviews. Now, this entire conversation and information can be updated within the applicant tracking system. We could be sending out notifications to the candidate owner that we've just gathered a new phone number, or during COVID, maybe our candidate moved or gained new education or skill sets. This literally allows us to go through, ask those custom questions. As the chatbot told us, less than 3 minutes to gather those questions. We validated the information all along the conversation to make sure that we got the correct information. Sending out those notifications, updating the information within the applicant tracking, all the way through scheduling an interview. The interview can be scheduled with an individual user, or as I've mentioned a few times, you can actually have that set up to be scheduled with multiple recruiters. Now, obviously, it's going to respect things like my calendar availability, my working hours, any buffers we need to build into those meetings. And as mentioned, also the ability to take this all the way through interview scheduling. So hopefully today in our scenarios and examples, you got a sense of the different ways that you can deploy your chatbot, whether that's inbound or outbound, whether that's purely text message or email or link driven. Every process you've seen today is accessible on text or via the web version that you've seen. I hope that everybody got a good idea of the chatbot today. Please ask any final questions that you might have within the chat Q&A. So welcome any questions here. I'm going to go ahead and turn things back over as we continue our conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. So, just a super quick recap from me. I think what you've seen so far are various different ways in which a chatbot can function. In inbound fashion, when people are coming to your website, a QR code, using a QR code if you were ever at a career fair event or any one of those things. An outbound chatbot that can actually either do pre-screening if you were going for a particular job, or just data enrichment if you just wanted to make sure people were up to date within your database. And then each one of these is paired with a scheduler. And then each one of these can be done over an SMS or a web. So it's essentially the most comprehensive platform from a chatbot standpoint. One of the things I'd like to ask you is if anybody has more questions, or if you would like to see a personalized demonstration of the platform, ask us a lot more questions. We're going to throw a poll out there just to essentially see if anybody wants us to reach out to them, and we can certainly do that. But at the same time, I also wanted to talk about, now that you've understood the chatbot, seen what the chatbot looks like, if any of you have a question on, this sounds like a big lift, this sounds like a large project, on how easy it is to set up a chatbot. So let's also talk about how quickly or how seamless the integration process for the chatbot itself is. First of all, if you're an existing Sense customer, setting up a chatbot for us is literally pressing a button. We press a button, chatbot gets enabled, and you have the conversations area within the product where you can start making your own chatbots. As you want to make your own chatbots, we will give you a library of solutions. Here are a number of different examples. So you can literally pick one of those and say, this is the one I want. And your customer success manager can help you build that, help you co-build that. So you know, you can see them do this step by step. So maybe you can build the next few bots yourself. We also have an in-house conversational designer. So if all you did was told us, and I think that's the question somebody just asked in Q&A. But if you told us, here are the questions we would like to ask, or here is sort of our recruiting process. I don't really know how to break this down into questions, but this is what we do. We have a conversational designer, a full resource who's available to you. That person is going to work with you to understand your process and convert it into chatbot questions. So you can easily do that. So first of all, if you're a Sense customer, we'll turn this on like this, get you CSM support, get you a library of chatbots, or if you have a special circumstance, we'll have a conversational designer build it for you. If you're a new customer, it's just as easy as getting a sync with your ATS data. We'll do that and immediately enable the chatbot. Typically takes a week to 2 to get that whole thing stood up. After that, I think Stephen ran out of time today, but we can also talk to you a lot about just analytics. And tell you a lot about everything that the chatbot can measure. How many people are talking to the chatbot? How many placements are you getting out of it? So on and so forth. So a lot of that we can certainly do there as well. So please keep in mind that the implementation of a chatbot is very, very easy. You also don't have to boil the ocean at all. You can start with 1 or 2 chatbots and just see the performance of those as you build more after that. As far as training on chatbots, we will absolutely walk you through the product. Stephen did 90% of that today. It's exactly the same kind of training where we'll walk you through the chatbot. We will build these chatbots for you. We can train just an admin. We can train everybody in your company who'll have access to that. And if you've been a Sense customer in the past, you probably know that we're always available for you as far as customer success and training is concerned. All right. So with that, I wanted to end by saying, Sense is essentially continuing to build on the vision of being the only complete system of engagement. We have, the engagement product, Sense Engage, that all of you are familiar with, a Sense messaging product, which is a 2-way text messaging platform, the chatbot and scheduler, which we just talked about, a product that is used just for tracking referrals, and a product for search and match called Sense Discover. So if you think about it, this is realizing the vision that we had when we started the company. Every staffing firm is going to have a system of record, that's your ATS, and Sense is going to be your system of engagement that sits on top of your system of record and bidirectionally talks to it. So, super excited to see us continuing to engage and continuing to build on that vision. And it's been amazing to see the value that we are providing back to several of our customers. But like I said, if you have more questions or if you'd like to have a one-on-one conversation, we'd be more than happy to do that. And with that, we'll take any other pending questions. Here is also mine and Stephen's email address in case you wanted to reach out directly or ask any questions. I've got a couple of questions here about what kind of training do you provide? I think I just covered that. What another question about, does the chatbot work for all industries? That is absolutely correct. You can absolutely create whatever screening questions you want. I gave you some examples of what light industrial customers might do. Hey, are you willing to wear a mask? Have you ever gotten a DUI? Can you stand on your feet for 8 hours a day? Can you lift 50 pounds? That's maybe the job description for a picker packer. But if you were hiring a forklift operator, you probably want to ask them, do you have a license? If you're hiring a nurse, you probably want to ask them, where are you credentialed? What are some of your credentials? When are they expiring? If you are an IT developer, you probably wanted to ask them, hey, how long have you been an iOS developer? How many years of experience do you have with Java? Whatever the question might be. But anything that your recruiter is going to ask can essentially be converted into a conversation, if that makes sense. Um, how much time is needed to maintain a chatbot is the other question I got. Literally zero time. There is nothing that you need to maintain a chatbot. You build it and forget it. Obviously, you would want to look at analytics to see if enough number of people are completing the chatbot. Sometimes you might ask them 10 questions and you will see that everybody gets stuck at question number 7 and they leave in the middle because you're asking something super complicated. Our analytics will point that out to you. Hey, you had a huge drop off at question number 7. You can change that, or you can make that the last question. Also, keep in mind that if somebody only answered the first 3 questions for you, what's your name, what's your email, what's your cell phone number, you absolutely have that information. So even if they decided to abandon the process at that time, no problem. You have that information, it's written back into the ATS, and now your recruiters in their normal course of recruiting can prospect with those candidates. All right, well, I hope that makes sense. In the interest of time, we promise everybody will finish on time. We're seconds away from 1 o'clock. So we will end the webinar right now. Again, I'll thank Stephen for walking us through the product. Thank you, all of you, for making the time to learn more about the chatbot. You have our emails, and if any of you expressed interest in us reaching out to you via the poll, we will certainly do that. And if any of you think of this after the webinar is over, please just send us an email or visit us at sensehq.com. With that, thank you very much and hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.